Greetings everyone, this is Kijin, and this is an intro to my first ever series that I want to record and upload on YouTube. And it's going to be a Dominions multiplayer game. It's peculiar choice, at least for me. I never really thought of myself as a YouTuber type, but hey, let's give it a shot, right? Since I'm playing all those games, might as well put them online and hey, maybe some people will enjoy them, right? It has been fun so far for me, so why not? It has been so fun because I'm actually recording this in the middle of a game already. So basically when you'll see the first episode of the actual gameplay, there'll be some differences in the microphone quality, and there'll be also issues with stuttering during fights, which is an issue I'll resolve later, so hope you stick around for long enough to actually enjoy the game to its fullest. In that game, I'll be playing as Nagashizzar, which is, well, Warhammer Fantasy faction, as it's going to be a modded game. It's a Sombre mod. It's an amazing mod, one of my favorites. I'm a huge fan of Warhammer Fantasy in general, so this is like any game that I can play Warhammer Fantasy in, it's awesome. It's not dwarves though, because dwarves are my all-time favorite. But I've played plenty of dwarves in this mod already, and I wanted to try something different. And by different, I mean like completely different for me as well in Dominions, because I actually never played Death Nation. Like the closest to Death I played was Lanka, but it's more like Blood and Air Nation than Death. So yeah, this is like completely new experience for me. And Nagashizzar is a very strong faction for sure, a very strong nation. One of the best in the mod, easily. On par with likes of Vampiria, High Elves, Lizard, Itza, whatever. There are a couple other top tier nations as well, but I put Chaos Nations in up there, at least Slanesh. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about Nagashizzar and what does Nagashizzar do. So they're Death Nation, right? Undead humans and spirits commanded by Necromancer. Death and growth skills have half impact on income, which is great because obviously we are going to be Death. We start with Death, and it's not worth trying to go on growth in such a nation. Corporal undead and ethereal spirits, we'll go over them soon. Strong Death with astral, fire, and water. We have some amazing mages. Priest below average because, it's Death Nation, so undead cannot preach. There are some human priest though, if need be. I mean, increase death regardless of skills. Exactly, that's the reason why you don't want to go growth as well. Temples major and death gems each month. So during my game, this was actually bugged and wasn't happening. It has been fixed in the more recent patches. Also, there have been a couple differences, such as in the game I played Morghasts, which I will go over as well. They have been slightly nerfed. I will mention that nerf when I get to them. Standard forts. Forts are 25% more expensive. That's definitely noticeable. But if you get good economy base, you can deal with that. And since your troops don't cost upkeep, it's fine. It's fine. It's really fair. And also we start with Citadel, being the Black Tower of Nagash, whatever it's called, right? Because some of our commanders, or rather this particular commander, would take forever otherwise to get. It's 6 recruitment points, command points. Okay, let's get through the commanders first. So we have Cairnwraith, which is a commander version of Cairnwraiths. It's an alright commander. It's solid for leading Cairnwraiths around because he's also stealthy. I guess I can discuss him as a profile for Cairnwraiths in general. They will have slightly less strength, if I remember correctly, and slightly less hit points. But it's quite chunky unit, hit points wise. No protection, but invulnerable 10. So even if hit by some indies, it can actually survive a hit or two, because their main defense is ethereal. 3 per square, so 6 attacks per square. Their stats are rather meh. It's not a thug, right? It's basically a means to lead Cairnwraiths. The Cairnwraiths commander stats are slightly higher than Cairnwraith. So maybe I'll discuss the unit more when I get to the unit itself. Cairnwraith is just to lead the Cairnwraith, right? Banshee, this one is interesting. It's quite expensive at 150. A decent number of hit points, Ethereal and Invul 10, Fear 5. Actually, Fear 5. It's floating, it's stealthy, 50, and it's an assassin, right? So, Nagashizzar doesn't have scouts. And because the Warhammer games are usually played with a pop-type PD mod, which also, it basically changes that, so there are no, like, indie provinces, right? Basically, when you take province, it becomes the type of your nation. It's in general, it can be good for some nations because, well, they have either diversity of magic they already need, and their PD is, for example, quite good. But for some, it's worse. So Nagashizzar, for example, their PD is not that great, even though it's led by Revenant, but it's only just skeletons. And you cannot recruit scouts. You cannot get indie scouts. So this is like, besides summoning servants, black servants, this is your scout, which is iffy. You might get couple. I actually got couple in the game, but that you'll see. But it's a big investment gold-wise. They're good assassins because that attack is insane. It's magic resistant negate, so of course it's not as effective against anyone that has solid magic resistance. So actually not that great against mages potentially. But it's arrow effect, attack 10, so it's basically gonna always hit. It sadly cannot be used for repelling, which, hey, I mean, if someone screams at someone loud enough, they will not approach you, right? But that's fine. But it's instant kill attack. And it has Bane Dagger, which is just decay. That's whatever. It's a cool assassin though. If the way lands, especially against units with low magic resistance, it's just instant kill. It's a potentially durable chassis against anything mundane, right? Because Ethereal, I tried using it when I was experimenting with how do I want to expand with Nagashizzar. I've been experimenting with them, and they do well. They do very well, of course, in assassinating indie commanders. The issue is that you get very few. They go both gold cost and 2 CP. It makes your expansion very slow. And also in my particular testing, of course, that was an extreme case, but they have only 12 morale. So what happened is I run into... It might have been Nature 1 or Nature 2. I think Nature 1 of some gems. And... I forgot the name of a spell. It's not panic, because panic I think is death. But the nature version of a spell that causes fear, right? I forgot how it's called. But yeah, basically, I sent 3 banshees to that province. They all assassinated the same guy, and the same guy killed all 3 banshees by just fearing them off. It's the AOE fear from nature. I forgot how it's called, but so that happened. That's very unlikely in normal game to happen, but it can. You can get also potentially wrecked by someone with holy paths or mage in general, but I mean, nothing you can do about that. Like whatever you assassinating with probably will die to like certain mages. So it's a cool unit. It's a cool unit. I haven't really played much with them. They can have some potential for sure. Or be like, if you really need scouts, they will suffice. White Kings, awesome commander, chunk of hit points, very good protection, actually really good magic resistance, because those are not brain dead undead. Standard like undead stuff with morale 30, a very good undead leadership, quite fast on a move map especially as well, very good stats. Amazing weapon, 2 attacks with 21 damage with 14 attack. It's a sick commander. Like, it's basically like a tag as well. The issue is it's very expensive, right? It's very expensive, and you'd rather be, of course, recruiting mages. But it can be summoned for 10 dev gems. I think dev gems might be slightly too much for him. Maybe 7, maybe 8. But it's an awesome commander to later in the game. Because earlier you probably want to just get Mount Kings and lead your chaff around with them and whatnot. But for later in the game, this guy is really good because he can fend off. And you can also send him in arena, and odds are he's going to actually, especially in people's arena, kick a lot of things ass. Death Cultist, that's your priest as Nagashizzar. Standard cost for priest, and there's a very small chance he will get death. I wish he had some base undead leadership. I think it would make sense. Just a little bit, like 5 maybe 10. I think it would make sense for the faction, since his death cult is, he could lead him a little bit of undead, because I've run into a couple of scenarios where I really wanted to just move around very few undead. Or have him actually defended by them as well, right? In case of some unfortunate event. I mean, not much to talk about, right? Well, Revenant, right? It's not exactly the same Revenant as you can summon, because his leadership is actually lower. But I think everything else is the same. It's 90 gold. It's a quite shitty researcher. But as Nagashizzar, I think you pretty much must go magic scales, magic free, to get your research going, to crush your death spells. So with Research 4, it's going to be Research 7, and then he's going to get his first star relatively quick. So it's going to be Research 8 guy for 90 gold with no upkeep. So they're really, really efficient researchers in magic scales. If you decide to go for Drain for whatever reason, maybe you want to go like some crazy blast, they're like useless. Like I wouldn't bother with them at all, like with Research 4. But yeah, they're like cheap when you have gold issues, especially early on in the game, but you want to have some research or potentially someone to move undead, or just emergency casting of single skeletons, or maybe even Hand of Death someone. It's doable, right? They're fine. They're never be gonna wrong investment unless you are rushing some research. Then there is much better choice. It's Necromancer. Substantially more research. More research per gold as far as recruitment goes, but of course they're humans, so they cost upkeep. And it's not a small upkeep at all. They're not sacred. But hey, it's death to recruitable anywhere. Can't complain. Like, this is going to be your workhorse researcher. When your economy is stable, right? But then we have also Master Necromancer. So this one is definitely more luxurious, mainly because not even of price, which is more than twice of the normal Necromancer, but recruitment points 4. So you have to have good reason you want to get those guys. And the good reason is that you want to get some cross buffs. In particular, I think the valuable one is Earth of Air. So that gives you access to Wailing Winds. Other ones, I mean, they're definitely maybe Stygian Rains. There's some Banefire. Potentially a Death 4 as well. Hey, that's really good. They're also sacred, so their upkeep is only slightly more than the normal Necromancer while being much stronger mage. But again, the recruitment point is the issue that doesn't make them... They're fine mages to get into armies, but when you're focused on research, the normal Necromancer is much better researcher as far as turn to gold ratio, right? But again, upkeep will be higher of the normal Necromancers. And then being sacred, you might have some spicy mage bless for them as well. So no, we're perfectly fine. Perfectly fine mage. His gold cost was reduced before the game I was playing. I think it was like 320 or something like that. So definitely overcosted. So that's much more reasonable. Very good magic resistance as well. So no, yeah, solid guy. Will definitely get also. Same story actually with normal Necromancers. Twice Born is a thing. So if you ever, I personally use Twice Born as a security measure. That the mage actually will not die if the combat goes poorly. But I know some people like to Twice Born and just suicide mages for income to save the upkeep of them. That seems kind of crazy to me, just because you waste multiple turns to do that. But yeah, it's an option, right? We'll skip Morghast for now, actually. I probably should have skipped Clanrave the same way and talk about him when we get to the unit itself. And then we have Lich of the Council. And oh boy, what a mage this is. So, very expensive. Takes 2 turns to recruit on cap, and it's cap only mage. So you get 1 per 2 turns. But is it worth it? Those 2 are negligible, but they can help you with some crafting, although crafting will be luxurious just because of, how much investment is into that mage and how much research points he's actually providing. you definitely will need those items you want to make with them. So Astral 2 is not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. I'm always worried with such expensive mage with low Astral, because Astral 2, it's very much magic doable, especially against some nations like Vampiria could potentially have bunch of Astral ones if I remember correctly. Slanesh, High Elves. Dueling Liches will always feel bad, so it's something to keep in mind. But therefore, just it gives you access to basically everything you want to cast. He cannot cast Welling Winds, right? So that's where Master Necromancer comes in. But let's see. Good chunk of hit points, very good magic resistance, great stats, partially because magic stuff is a very cool weapon. He's Secret, he's Holy too. Priest 2 actually, and good map move because Undead, insane under leadership. It causes fear 9, very good fear. So with these stats by default, if you're using them for combat and some random units make it to him, they're probably just gonna not kill him and just break from fear. He's susceptible to fire. I would highly advise to always include fire resistance in a blast just because of those guys. It would feel so bad to lose him to some random fire damage or Flamestorm in particular, because if you're gonna be running a lot of undead, then Flamestorm is one of the best ways to deal with undead nations in general, as far as the chaff goes. Cold resistance, poison resistance, standard undead stuff. Is Alchemist 25? That's just flavor thing, I'm pretty sure, because I would never. I don't know how desperate would I be for gold to be using such a mage to get a little bit of gold from fire gems. But finally, Farcaster Death. So 25% increased range on Death. It's not little. It helps you with couple spells, both like artillery. If you go evocation with various artillery spells, but also if you're going against someone like Vampiria, it helps you with Dust to Dust or later with Wither Bones. So that's a very cool bonus, and of course it affects other paths as well, right? So it's not like death only. Oh no, my bad. It is death only. It's death only spell casting. The Vampiria has mages that have range for all spells. So yeah, Sick Mage. After a couple initial turns, you'll see that in the game. Small spoiler. I'll be pretty much recruiting only them because cap turns for mage recruitment need to be used well, and this is about as well as you can get. Okay, let's get into the troops. So it's similar. It's very similar to Vampiria. And we get like access to regular soulless, regular long dead warriors and archers. Although archers get composite bow because it's like Nehekaran Legacy. They can spawn with random types, right? Of the long dead or soulless. So they can be armored. They can have various weapons. They can dual wield, stuff like that. Similar story with horsemen. Those are like regular long dead horsemen. And that's about it for like very vanilla like units, right? So let's get into the Crypt Ghouls. I hate them. They're cheap. They're very cheap. For 2 attacks, being slaves, so cheap to upkeep. Not awful stats. A lot of hit points actually, but I hate them because morale 8 is. I'm not sure how to use them, honestly. Nagashizzar doesn't have slavers. Like the slave leadership guys, so if there was a good way to fix their morale, I could see them being used. There's also no armor, but they have some natural protection. They're very cheap, and they have also good siege defense, so maybe later in the game you could be mass recruiting them because of low recruitment and resource cost to defend your forts. I could see that potentially as a case. Otherwise, yeah, those guys are very situational, just desperation tool, I feel like. Let's get into much better troops. So Graveguard. It's also shared with Vampiria. It's like an elite undead. Above average hit points, very solid stats. They cost twice as much as normal human though, with decent resource cost and recruitment points, but very good protection. Like heavy, light, medium to heavy sort of an armor, with a fantastic weapon that's magic damage built in for 19 damage. That's very good, and that's their version with shield. There are also two versions with two-handed sword and two-handed glaive that also has buckler instead of shield, and they hit for like 23 and 24 damage, with about the same attack value. I think halberd has one less. So awesome troop. Definitely could be used to mass recruit and be used as mainstay of your army. You know, with built-in magical weapons, it helps you to do with various sort of nonsense like mist form, ethereal, potential elementals. They will still get, of course, wrecked by fire elementals, but at least they will kill them as well. Then we have let's keep the legionnaires. Actually, no. Let's talk about legionnaires now because they're similar to the Graveguard. They're cap only recruitment. They have a very cool weapon with length 4, damage 16, magical damage. They are like just better version of, well, slightly better version of Graveguard. Little bit more hit points, maybe slightly better stats, 5 gold more. I think it's better magic resistance, right? Yeah, it's 15 magic resistance, better armor. This is like the Nagashizzar specialty, the meteorite armor. And there's 4 per square. So they have good density, good repelling, very solid troop, but very high resources. If for some reason you're not going for Morghasts, I could see you trying to play around those guys as a kind of Arcacephali style, without the bless though. No, but they're good like accidental recruitment. You know, after you make your Morghast, then you can like spend the rest of your resources and whatnot on legionnaires. Issue is that they're cap only. Maybe if they were not cap only, they would definitely be much more attractive recruitment if they're not cap only. Because they're cap only, it's less. We have Torture Spirits. I haven't really experimented with those guys. It's 2 attacks. It's 3 guys per square. They have light invulnerability. They don't have fear or anything, but they're stealthy. And ethereal. Stats of militia. But they're, you know, low resources. So in provinces with low resources, if you're not struggling with gold, it can be a solid recruitment. Just because, you know, armor piercing, chilling grass, that will, with this volume of attack per square, it will mess up heavy armor units that don't have the cold resistance. So it is what you see, right? Since we're on ethereal, I'm slightly, since I'm doing that for the first time, hopefully for the future playthroughs I'll be more decisive of how I want to do it. Let's just jump to the other ethereal units and then come back to the more quote-unquote mundane ones. So Cairn Wraith, so you can see the base stat line. So the leader had slightly better strength and attack. 65 gold is a lot. But what you get for it is not bad. It's an armor-piercing two-handed weapon that hits for 18. So armor-piercing is a big deal, right? It helps you with those knights, or you know, whatever heavy armored stuff will be thrown at you. These guys will be a very good way of fighting back. And Chilling Grasp, which is another attack, also armor-piercing. So 2 attacks. So 6 attacks per square. It's very solid. Even though their stats are very bad, just because of harassment, you will be killing things. And, you know, sometimes single hit will be enough to kill someone. But because their defense is actually this poor, and they have no protection, they have Invul 10, but even if you fight indies, something like Lion Tribe, potentially, or basically mass archers, when using them as expanders, right, which is what you will see me doing. Like mass archers, mass range fire can actually mess them up while they're approaching the front line. But once they do, they might also die to like large volume of attacks with like Wolf Tribe. But because they have Fear 5, and there's a lot of them in a line, so that's a lot of Fear procs, they will often win fights by just fearing the enemy. So that's very solid. But any means of anti-undead, any like, you know, spells that deal damage, they will be messing those guys up. And they are very expensive. So it's a very niche, situationally great unit to recruit. But they have some hard counters that will be very expensive to lose. But I like them. And the other Ethereum units that I like less, I like them actually way less, is Hex Rays. They're more expensive. They have slightly more defense, but they have much less hit points, right? If we look at those guys, they have 18 hit points, and just to point out, it's map move 18. So these guys have map move 26, which makes them only really led by, I guess, White King, maybe Harbinger, but oh, spoiler about Harbinger. So very fast in combat. So yeah, slightly higher defense than the Cairn Rays, but they don't have the cold attack anymore. They have only Hoof, and that Hoof will mess you up against like Fire Shield and stuff like that. Even though they have, they do have some fire resistance, right? So that's the difference. They have fire resistance built in. Otherwise, very similar profile as far as special abilities, and they have Hexwave Sight, which is also an armor-piercing two-handed weapon with the same damage, with the extra bonus of Fire of Damnation, which is a really powerful effect, right? It's secondary armor-piercing hit for big chunk. That doesn't work on Undead, though. Oh, I'm stupid. I was actually considering using it in that game against certain undeads that you will see, and I'll be talking about it potentially being good. Well, it wouldn't do anything, but it can be good against, like, definitely will be good against Ulm, for example. But in general, Warhammer games are only Warhammer factions without your regular vanilla nations. It's also magic resistant, but it's difficult to negate, so it will often hit. But because of their price and actually, I would say, lower durability and being only 2 per square instead of 3, I think they're much weaker than Hex Raves. I think they're just weak. I don't like Hex Raves. Maybe they can be situationally good flankers as well, but I'd use Black Knights instead, basically, and I'll get to Black Knights soon. With a Chariot, it's a Chariot. I'm not a fan of Chariots, so I can't really talk much about it. It's 30 gold, so I think it's actually pretty cheap, and resource-wise and recruitment points, it's pretty reasonable Chariot. It has repelling. If only, I hope in Dominion 6 the chariots or basically mounted units of that type will be able to fire while moving to trample. I think it's kind of silly that you can either fire or you move to trample. It should be a mechanic that you can actually keep on firing while driving, but that's not the point. I think it's an alright trample, but I'm not a fan of chariots. Solid defense too, right? So, but partly because thanks to shield, and their armor is actually not great, so even the hit on a shield will, 23 protection. It's not great. Some people might swear by them. I don't know. I haven't played much with them. I don't like chariots, right? I said a couple times. Other units I really haven't touched is Carrion Rider. It's interesting, right? It's 5 per month limited in any fort. It has no real protection, unfortunately. It's pretty big, but it has a big chunk of hit points. It's actually quite strong. It has many attacks. It has 3 attacks. With this one being very interesting, it's armor-piercing life drain. So those guys can potentially be actually really good. I just haven't really had reason to use them. They're patrols, but I don't think you would be paying 40 gold for what? 5 patrol strength? Yeah. On attack rear against someone that doesn't expect them, they're also really fast as well. But yeah, they could. Actually, nobody can really use that map move well with them. Maybe some summoned commander could. I don't know. It's wasted on them really, because none of your commanders can move that far and be flying as well. So interesting units. Maybe someone will find a use for them. I haven't found a use for them personally. Okay, now let's get to the real meat of the nation. So very unique unit, Emami. It's a powerhouse. It's a limited recruitment of 4 per month on your capital only, but there are in enchantment 4 or 5, you can start getting about as many number. I think it's 4 per 7 gems or maybe 8 gems, something like that. So it's also later a good summon, but it's a fantastic unit. A huge chunk of hit points, very good strength. Stats are mid, but it's a chunk of hit points that doesn't get that much afflicted. So that's a useful tool because I hate afflictions. I hate how little mechanics there are in Dominions to actually heal afflictions, unless you play another awesome mod such as Dominions Enhanced, but that's off the topic. It has Death Curse, so whoever kills a mummy will get cursed. It's whatever, it's flavorful. They're bodyguards, so that's useful. The mummies are definitely good bodyguards for Ulysses if you're worried about assassins or some remote assassinations. They're susceptible to fire, so worth to keep in mind. And because they're not sacred, you cannot really counter that, so it's worth keeping in mind. Who do you want to use them against? Their protection is alright. Head is 20, body is 11 because they have that ornate headdress. So their attacks, they have 2 attacks each, and those are really good attacks. So it's alternating between piercing and bludgeoning attack for 21 damage because mummies are incredibly strong for being, you know, impacting their frame. So that's a very good attack. And they have Grasp of the Tongue, which is it's a nasty attack. It's armor piercing and type damage. Right, because it's not like it's a cursed attack basically that causes decay. Those guys, oh man, mummies are incredible unit, and good thing they're limited in numbers because I'd love to have just front lines of those guys, and maybe if you end up spending a lot of gems for those guys, you'll have, if you, especially if you don't go for Bless on Morghasts, for heavy Bless, I think this is like your premier troop for Nagashizzar. Awesome unit. They're not cheap though. Of course, they're not cheap. 50 is a heck of a change for infantry, but it's well worth it. Another amazing unit have access to, which is also shared with Vampira, are Black Knights. This is just, I mean, it's those guys, but on scaly horses, right? Ancient Lance, which is heavy weapon, so they will hit like a truck on a charge. Magic damage built in, an ancient sword is built in magic damage. Very strong, very solid armor. Protection is 19 on their head and body. Solid defense. Attack is okay, 12 with those weapons, so above average. They're expensive, of course, and because they're undead, if you don't have Nagashizzar has access to healing of undead during combat with their death mages, but if you haven't gone that path and you're not like using mages with them, they can take attrition damage from getting, you know, hit a little bit here and there, and they will not heal in between moving between provinces because they're undead. But it's not a big deal, honestly. It's a amazing unit. High on resources as well and recruitment points, but very much worth getting. It's a heavy cap, right? Let's talk about Meme Giant. Corpse Giant, I tried recruiting it. Okay, issues with this thing. It's 1 per turn per fort. It can be recruiting any fort, but you can get only 1 per fort per turn. It's incredibly strong. It's a bunch of hit points, 120 hit points, but it has no protection. Its stats are a joke. It will get hit by everything, so that hit point suddenly matters much less if you're just getting hit by everything. Magic resistance is okay, at least. They're relatively fast. Map move is solid. They're very expensive. They're very expensive. Just, I don't know. I'm not a fan of those, but the attacks are interesting, right? So Club, you'll not hit anything with Club. Maybe some other undead. Maybe you can bash other similar units in the head with that Club. Wild Swing is This is the reason you basically want to get giants for. It's either to be that chunk of hit points that will be a target for whatever spells the enemy is casting, and this is the other reason. It's a defense negates, so not great against elite units, but against some chaff, it's a 2 attacks with each with area effect 2. So if you're fighting someone like greenskins with goblins, this can be potentially devastating, like just annihilating squares of little or just even normal humans with mid stats. It can be very devastating. And Giant Stomp is a similar thing, as its defense negates or can be negated by large or strong beings. Also another attack of area of effect attack. So it can be potentially devastating. If you manage to get some sites that will allow you to recruit certain mages that would point buff them, they could be very effective frontliners. As they are, they will just get hit so easily, they will die during combat, despite those hit points. But if situationally, they can be very good in clearing chaff and very good in eating spells from the enemy. That's about it. Now, let's get to the Premier Sacreds that in 2 forms. So, Morghast and Morghast Archive. Oh boy, those guys have been nerfed in most recent patch, so they require Dominion 5 to recruit and cost 110 gold. And I think that's about right. Anymore, I think it's gonna be getting into the place where, they might not be worth recruiting, right? But they're very strong Sacred, right? It's a 2 attack Sacred that's flying, that has good hit points, very solid stats, good protection, no head protection, but solid body protection, 19, because their natural is 8, so very solid. Actually, sorry, it's gonna be 18, I think, because I think they lost point of natural protection as well. So 7 head and 18 body protection with the recent nerf. That's not visible here. So 2 attacks, right? And the very special thing is that those killed will rise as soulless beings. So I was flirting with a larger bless for Nagashizzar, but I decided against it mainly because of Morghast Blades. The size 4 makes that so when you kill a regular sized unit, you will be able to share square with them, and it's a big deal to keep them in life. That soulless that will spawn will be a body that can get hit instead of them, and it's really a big deal to keep those guys alive, because otherwise, having 2 weapons generally makes your defense slightly worse. Not having shield like many high tier sacreds like Anakites have. But they're very killy. They take blesses very well. And it's an investment, right? They're quite expensive, a lot of resources. So you basically have to go some production with Nagashizzar if you want to be making those guys. And they're also in Conjuration. I think Conjuration 5 allows you to start summoning them in small numbers, but it's worthy summon. You'll see a lot of those in my game. My build will be about those guys, and you'll see when I discuss my god shortly. They have an alternate more elite version that's actually limited to only 1. I think that limit to 1 in a newest version is slightly too much, because honestly, they're good in killing elites better just because of that big attack, right? And they have better armor. They have a head armor as well. Maybe slightly better stats, and hit points are the same, slightly more strength, I think, right? No, strength the same, so better magic resistance by 1. They also move on a map slightly less, and I think they hit. Yeah, no. So it's basically instead of 2 attacks that are still good, it's going to be that much larger hit, with some repelling potential. No, good in killing elites, but as a general troop, this one is better. This one's just better. It's more killy having 2 weapons. And then we have Archive, which is dual wielding Morghast with very good armor by default, He's priest 1, so he can lead Morgas and bless them and bless himself. Solid stats, good magic resistance, so it's not like he's gonna get banished easily. Hit points are great. He got nerfed to cost 260 gold, if I remember correctly. And I think, yeah, and in exchange, he actually is gonna be priest 2. So I think it's a nerf. Like, priest 2 is fine because it's gonna allow you to bless the troops you're moving with better. But 60 gold, it's not little. It's definitely a big blow. It basically kills idea of expanding with them, because you need to get to Dominion 5 as well on them, I think. So to reasonably have a chance, you have to recruit a death cultist, right? Then prophet him, and then have him preach. That's the only reasonable way you can get to Dominion 5 quickly. So I think that's what Sombre wanted, right? So, and it's still not gonna be quickly, really. It's gonna be like turn 4 or 5 when you actually can start recruiting those guys, and it's gonna be like well much into expanding phase of the game, and that's what Sombre wanted. He didn't want them to be used for expanding, and he didn't want to have too much of a number of troops and commanders for like first war. Which realistically is gonna happen soon, because Nagashizzar, similar to like Armor or Lemuria and like vanilla Death Nations, and or Vampiria in case of a Warhammer mod, this nation has to be targeted early on, or if later then with proper coalition. Otherwise, being Death Nation with strong mages and strong troops, it will outscale most of the other nations. Vampiria is a similar case, right? So a great tag chassis, no paths of course, but give it I mean, yeah, you don't have access to nature, which gives you know like the premier vine shield, but when I was testing before those limits of Dominion, they were fantastic expanders. Like I could have 2 or 3 fly around and they were actually clearing provinces very well with strong bless, of course. But that's no longer the case. That will be definitely your like later in the game. They'll be leading Morgas around though. Thugging is still gonna go well for you with them. Cool commander, really cool commander. So for sides, yeah, we start with 4 Death Gem income. That's all. So funny enough, in the game I'm playing, it's not 5, it's 4, so it's been lowered by 1 compared to regular income from capital, and that's the reason why you get Death Dev Gem income from temples, right? Chance-based Dev income. But that was bugged as well, so I was kind of gimped on Dev Gems, but it wasn't as big of a deal, I guess. And you know, the recruitment, so our summons, our particular summons. So you can summon mummies, you can summon pretty much anything except of ethereal units. As Nagashizzar, yeah, you can summon everything except of maybe Karen Riders. You cannot summon ethereal guys, and you cannot summon Karen Riders. Otherwise, there's summoning spells for everything, including mummies and Morgas, right? And you can also summon Morgas Harbinger, and you can summon White Kings. For other cool summons, we have Zombie Dragon. I didn't get to use it. I'm just gonna say it outright. I didn't get to use that thing. It's interesting. It's a unit, right? So if you point buff it, maybe some more protection. I'm not sure what it's supposed to accomplish. It's a chunk of hit points and just a big unit. It's neat. It's neat. It has big fear. Solid resistance. Actually, it has breath. Actually, it has plague breath that causes fear. So certainly there are some uses for it where it could be amazing. I haven't played much with it. And there is Nagash himself, right? A big daddy. That's a true god, right? Your pretender god is just like a big, like a bigger prophet for this bad boy. You will hear me talk about him during the game as well. So just to run over him really quickly, I'm gonna point quickly at this. He casts at 50% faster than regular. He has huge protection. Good hit points. He's size 5, sadly, not size 6. It can matter in some circumstances, so he can get trampled, potentially. He has very good morale, magic resistance. He has great stats. He's very strong with this disgusting weapon. 2 attacks, 13 damage each. It also life drains. Hits for 33. Just freaking Nagash, man. Crazy paths, especially with Death and Astral. He spreads Dominion. He has Death 2 extra range and Farcaster range for all, so I think that makes Death 3. Farcaster, Death 3, so 75% extra range on Death. He has some insane fear, 14. He heals himself. He's Reanimator, so I assume when he kills things with spells, he also reanimates. Alchemist is a meme, it doesn't matter. What a guy. A priest level 4. And it's a sacred unit. So this is absurd commander, right? But summon him, I think it's 70 dev gems, so it's not like it's little, right? It's only one of, and he has to be strong. Like, it's Nagash, it's the big bad of Warhammer Fantasy. I'm glad that he is represented as such a powerful mage that can still be dusted to dust by someone. Alright, he also has Codex Mortificus, which is passively cast Control the Dead. So if someone wants to use that against you, some summons or Vampire wants to send their vampires against him, yeah, he's gonna be like, you little shits, how dare you fucking betray me, get back in here, you lose your commander status, you serve me now. Awesome guy. Anything else? Alright, we have 2 heroes. So actually, let's get to Krell. Krell is a fun guy. He is Dominion Immortality, which is really neat. It's like it's a nice like defensive tag because it's also 2 attacks for 29 damage weapon. It's gonna mess things up. Like if someone tries to tag you and you have that guy in that province, he's just gonna delete that tag. And there's also low risk when you're defending your own Dominion because Dominion Immortality of actually 6 months, so it's quite long, but it's fine. Could be a bit shorter, maybe like 4. But hey, it's good to have it. So yeah, not much to talk about this guy. It's a good commander. Can take couple items, mainly helm and boots. So if you get like boots of quickness, then he becomes like true murder of any thugs. Can give him some resistances without miscellaneous slots. Sadly not sacred. That's fine. Cool guy. And there's Archon, the black. Another really powerful hero you can get. Probably he can come only like later in games. So I'm assuming like at least year 2, if not year 3. So he has Farcaster Death and Farcaster All because he's actually using the same stuff as Nagashi's. It's Nagashi's stuff that you see on Nagash himself. But that's before Nagash is summoned, of course, resurrected. I mean, again, you get what you see, right? It's a trampler, though, great stats, great paths, wholly free. It can fly, so very mobile, actually. I guess that's the guy that can move certain units that are otherwise wasted with their movement speed. Alchemist a meme. Susceptible to fire a little bit, but since he's sacred, you're probably gonna have fire resistance in your blast. Cool weapon as well. Single attack instead of 2 compared to like Nagash or Krell, but it's still great attack with light drain effect. It is what you see, right? Amazing hero. Very strong. It's like your Leash of the Council, but better, right? Basically. So let's have a quick jump, and I'll show you the god I'm gonna be playing with. Alright, this is my pretender. Great Prophet of Nagash, because obviously Nagash is the true god. So it's imprisoned rainbowy crone, right? I want to give my Morgas resistances. Slight defensive buff is also going to go long run. Just, helping them not die to regular attacks. Strength of the Earth matters a lot for a unit that has 2 attacks. Those blades will be damaged 23, right? Magic resistance. It's alright. I'm not regretting taking it. It helps you with various things. But in hindsight, I will 100% for the future, if I ever play Nagash, I will take Farcaster as Bless from Astral. This is gonna make Leashes of the Council absolute beasts in casting those death spells. They'll be chugging them across the whole map, and against Undead especially, so like Vampiria being your nemesis, right? They get wrecked once you get to Wither Bones, and you'll be having that incredible extension of range. So I think it's 30 range base, and you'll have, like, I assume 100% increased range, so 60 range Wither Bones. Insane. I wish I had it during that game. It's not that I hope I'm not spoiling much. Ignore that. There'll be Vampire in the game, right? So yeah, I wish I had that, but Magic Resilience is also a fine choice, right? Resilient to have the breakpoint of 30 hit points goes above 30 hit points, so my Morgas actually healing 4 instead of 3 per turn. Blood Surge, I mean, that's a great on any killy good sacreds. And Reforming Flesh is it's incarnate, so it's gonna take a long time before it comes into play. But once it does, it really will increase the durability of my sacreds. That's how I wanted to use that death. Turmoil free with luck free, you know, cool combo. Productivity is a must if you want to go for Morghast. Cold free because you're undead. Magic free because you really need those research. I really wish I could squeeze in more Dominion. But I think, you know, with 5 now being the required number for recruitment of Morghasts, you know, that's the minimal value you have to go. I wish I could go like 7, realistically, to, you know, to be able to produce them more. But maybe dropping Magical a bit, but maybe luck actually. Maybe luck 2 and more Dominion. But yeah, this is my god. And when she pops out, it's, you know, turn 30 something. So depending on the research goals and how the game went, she'll be either researching for a bit herself. She can craft some crucial items, maybe, if you want more into construction. But the idea of her is that I want to cast Twiceborn, and with luck free, I want to be transforming her until she becomes like a Etin. And hey, then she becomes the super combatant, right? Both as a living form, and then when she dies, having Twiceborn, she becomes a white mage, and now I have super combatant chassis god, right? With so the chassis itself being this frail doesn't matter in the long run because she will just transform herself into much nastier thing. So yeah, that's the bless I went with for Morghasts. It's you know, it's standard rainbow. You cannot go with rainbow. You know, the Reforming Flesh is more spicy part of it. And yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with how the how it worked out point wise for the and how it worked for Morghast themselves as well. So this is the first episode, I guess. Hope you didn't find me too annoying rambling around various things. I'll try to streamline those maybe more in the future so they're a bit shorter because it's pretty long recording actually. And the only in last moment you'll see me talk about the god. But hey, if you stuck this long, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll enjoy the game. I'll be uploading soon from the moment of uploading this video. So yeah, talk to you later.